SD.
What do you mean by new introduction?
Like people introduction, we don't have time.
Okay, we can just have team introduction and we can start with the pictures. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Socratic dialogue of Constitution. So, have you ever thought why our Constitution start with the preamble? Why do you think preamble define principle and values? So, we are going to have a dialogue on the same. So, I would request the teams to start with the introduction. Why the team have their names? We have two teams, Magna Carta and Successors. So I would request one of the team to start with the introduction of the team.
I can go ahead and tell why our name is successors. So it's like we are helping when you hear our pitch, you'll understand the context of it. We're helping the companies to achieve their goals or their KPIs or their milestone, whatever they are. So that is the brief introduction.
So regarding our team name, so Magna Carta was issued by UK government, UK Parliament in June 1215, and it was the first document to put into writing that the principle, it is a principle that the king and his government was not above the law. So, we chose that team name because principles are the one that drives the a country or an organization or a company. So the policy that was set is the one which guide the either a government or a country or a company. So that's why we chose the Magna Carta.
Okay, interesting. One is going to discuss about the KPIs and objectives, and another team is just going to discuss the policy that was set in 1215. So I would request one of the team to go ahead with the pitches. Who wants to go in? Which team wants to take initiative?
Okay, we will go first. So yeah, regarding our pitch, we took a scenario. Yeah, okay? Yeah, Sanskrit, you can continue.
So we took a scenario. Let's say there is one company, Pioneer Company. It's an education technology company. It is facing a challenge where employees are assigned dual responsibilities. They are teaching and they are teaching actively, and they are contributing in their projects also, the technical projects. So because of these two responsibilities, they are not able to maintain their work life, and they are feeling burnt out. So here, what we are trying to do is we are implementing a policy. A fundamental essence of the policy is Article 21. We have taken Article 21 in depth, and Article 21 says that protects the right to life, and it gives a personal liberty to a person. It ensures a work environment that prevents burnout of the employee. So Article 21 is about this. And I want to mention one fact also, that the WHO estimated that depression and the anxiety cause the global economy approx $1 trillion per year in loss of productivity. So Aditya, can you please continue?
Okay, thank you for your pitch, team Magna Carta. So in the favor of time, I would request team Successor to go ahead with the question.
Sorry, Sanskriti, I didn't get you. What exactly is your policy?
Our policy includes 2 points. We are introducing 2 points in our policy. First is regular assessment by leaders of any team. They will conduct a regular assessment. It will help them to balance their workload for their team. And second is uh, redistribution of tasks on a rotation basis. So it's like within the team, they are redistributing a task on regular basis. So these are the two policies we are implementing to balance the workload.
Yes, Sanskrit, I have a follow-up question to that is, how is the assessment helping you to have the work-life balance in a team or in an environment?
Uh, let's say our leader conduct one assessment within the team. Now leader will get to know who is more focused and
I
uh,
think the question went into tangent. It's Sanskriti is presenting a policy, and the question was that ki how this policy is helping that individual and to get the solution of the problem. But first of all, why this is brought into the policy, that would be my question. Before going into the solution space, that how this will help individual and all. So, and point number one, initially you mentioned that you are applying Article 21, where it's all about fundamental rights of the human being, or not human being, it's basically the people who are from the country. So, how do you think this Article 21 fundamental rights, your principle from the Constitution, is related here in terms of whatever policy that you mentioned?
yeah. Aditya,
Anyone else from the team can answer.
So yeah, Article 21, protect the right to, for personal liberty and ensuring the work-life balance for the people in the organization, so that they don't feel burnt out, or I would say, they don't feel the depression or anxiety levels. So generally, when you're working in a company and you're managing multiple roles, there is a possibility that you may feel anxiety because of you have multiple deadlines for coming from both the responsibilities. So also there may be more workload in one particular responsibility and less workload in another thing. So the goal is to maintain the balance between the both responsibilities. We are not talking about work life here. Yeah, it is one of the actual, but we are trying to balance both of the responsibility at a single glance, and we will get that idea only when we get the work life workload balance of both the parties, and we will get that by regular assessment of the people in the organization. Let's say you're working in a let's say
Aditya, I'm sorry to interrupt. Let's please keep our answers really short, right? So we have got your idea. Let's just let me ask a quick follow-up, right? So we understand that you're trying to bring in that Article 21 statement into your organization, right? So it's being followed properly. But how do you ensure that the fundamental essence of that Article 21 that you are describing stays intact in the policy that you are, designing? How do you do that?
So you're saying like how can you actually follow the right of personal liberty through our policies, right? If I'm not wrong.
Right. Basically, how are you, integrating that article in Article 21, that whatever right that you have mentioned into your policy, and making sure that it's being implemented.
So yeah, the policy that we mentioned, like regular assessment, right? So through regular assessment, we will get the idea of the workload of the people. Then based on that, we can draft better, you know,
No, that's a
distribution of
tangent,
tasks.
Aditya. You are saying me that these are some of the aspects of policies that will solve the problem of burnout and stuff, right? But
Mhm.
my question is, how do you make sure that the policy stays intact? By
Okay.
intact, I mean you have introduced this new policy in your culture, right? So how do you make sure that there is no resistance to it? Let's say that it sustains, it does not die out. The policy is being followed.
Oh, so I would say there should be rules, right? Like for every 1 week, we'll conduct the assessments. So,
What assessment
when
are
we
you
keep
talking about?
I'm talking about the assessments, right?
What assessment?
Like
That's my
happiness
question.
scorecard, like
Assessment.
happiness
I don't know what
scorecard.
happiness scorecard is.
So, like, we'll conduct regular assessment. Like, we'll keep one day for particular day. On that particular day, we will have some discussion over your teammates and understand their workload balance. And based on that, we will get the idea, right?
Again, my question is not whether or not people are now not getting burnt out and stuff. My question is around how do you make sure that the policy that you have come up with is staying intact? The policy could be on anything, right? It doesn't have to be just on the burnt out stuff, but you're introducing a new policy in your organization. How do you make sure it remains? Team successor, can you please pick up from
Yes,
that thread?
team successor, if you have any follow-up question, you can go ahead. And uh,
I,
I just
I
want
just
to,
uh,
yes,
I
yes,
just want
Aditya.
to
Hmm.
share my opinion. So maybe we can draft another rule, that another policy maybe, that this assessment should be conducted generally. Maybe a rule for
Great,
a rule.
awesome, awesome. Aditya, that answers. Successor, please go ahead with your follow-up.
So I would like to know that, as Tushar said, whatever you're doing, how do you make sure that is intact? Correct. My follow-up would be, even if it is intact, it is not stating your the main statement what you made.
Aditya, just one point, right? What you're
Mm,
doing right now is introducing a new thread. We don't
mm,
have to introduce a new thread until the one that is being discussed gets done, right? So
yeah, yeah.
Aditya said that to make sure that the current policy stays intact, he's introducing another policy. He's introducing another rule, another law within the organization. Is there a follow-up for that?
So what is
What
that
would
rule that
that
you're
be?
introducing?
Yeah.
Sorry.
So what is the new rule or the new policy you're introducing to keep that uh, previous policy intact, or to keep the essence of Article 21 in that previous policy intact? What all
I
rules are you implementing?
I would like to answer. We can um, conduct our assessment through which we'll get to know each and every employee, whatever the task they are working on, are they on the same, like what level they have accomplished in their task. So through this, we can get to know that whether they are burnt out or not.
Sanskrit,
Yeah.
in our tangent, we're not talking about punt out right now, are we?
We are talking about the policies that is being implemented and how this policy can be intact throughout the organization.
Exactly.
Right. So Aditya mentioned that he will introduce another policy to her, and Aditya asked, "How are you? What is that additional policy?" Right. So yeah, what's your question? What's your answer?
So the additional policy would be like take the assessment properly and seriously. Everyone should like take the assessment every week. Like that.
How are you making sure the assessment is taken seriously?
To a tangent for you. Omkar introduced one point about assessment, but that's a fallacy, right? We are not talking about any assessment right now. If he introduces some assessment, he has to define what that assessment is. He has not defined that. So you can question, what do you mean by assessment?
So what do you mean by assessment? I mean, you're introducing an assessment for the original assessment that you guys were doing. Is that, I mean, am I getting it right? Then can you explain what this assessment is that you want to introduce?
So when we create a policy in an ecosystem, we make sure the policy is like, going through or not. So for that we make an assessment. For example, here we are making our policy is about the burnout of the people. So assessment is like asking some questions related to our problem. So we make everyone answer those questions every week.
So I have a follow-up question. Are you creating an assessment to ensure that the policy is being implemented properly or not? Or are you having an assessment in the policy to ensure the policies is being implemented properly?
I would
No,
say
we are
that
having
there
only
should be a kind of
one assessment,
checklist.
and the
Wait, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, my internet got stuck.
we'll be having only one assessment. We would be only having only one assessment, and the second policy is to everyone should follow the assessment.
Omkar, again,
Omkar,
tangent. So you're not asked how many assessments you're producing, whether or not people are following that assessment. Sagun's question is, uh, there's one policy, right? To make sure that the policy is being kept intact, are you introducing an assessment or are you introducing a policy within which there is an assessment? What are you doing? That's our question.
We are introducing a policy within which are some assessment which are making it sure that the policy is being followed.
Okay, now a quick follow-up, right? So we can go into questioning that assessment further, but again, I could ask the second policy that you have introduced that to make sure that it stays intact, what do you do? Then you can say that we'll introduce a third policy. So where does it
So,
end?
so I would say, let's say I have 10 policies that are drafted. So I will create one policy and I will say that those who are not willing to follow these 10 policies strictly will be, like kind of uh, punished for this particular thing. We can do that.
Okay,
So,
Aditya, uh, I've
hmm,
got it. A quick clarification. Do you understand how policies are drafted, and can you tell us that process?
like for drafting a new policy, right? One thing I would see while drafting a new policy is the understanding that stakeholders involved. So, and the second thing would be like, uh, my policy should be applicable in, most probably try to be applicable in different contexts. And the third policy should be like, it should be the policy that a drafter should be able to be adaptable.
Sure,
Hmm.
Aditya. Tangent. I did not ask for the properties of your policies, right? I asked the process of drafting a policy.
Okay. So I think the first one will still, applicable here, like understanding when the process, firstly, I will understand the stakeholders. Then after understand the stakeholders, I can understand the context. Then first thing about the stakeholders, I think objective will come first. And based on the objective on the stakeholders, I can draft a policy.
Right. So see, my point was that you said that you'll draft 10 policies, right? Isn't that an overkill? Successes, please pick up from that.
So, sorry, can you repeat it?
So
I think what
Tushan was saying like if you have 10 different policy, isn't that a lot of policies to be followed? Isn't that a
Yeah,
overkill?
I just gave a number. I'm not saying like there should be 10 policies. I just gave a number that let's say there are 10 policies and other policy will.
Why do you think our constitution is this big? Lots of policies are being there and lots of policies are being drafted to ensure the democracy of each and every individual is intact. So do you think number is means getting more numbers in the policy would hurt?
Probably it
Uh,
depends upon the number of people that are, you know, that are stakeholders for the policies. So if the number is more and the people are more diverse, let's say, so there can be more number of policies based on the diversity of the stakeholders.
I would request other team members to also have.
What I say is, the main aim of policy is to solve some issue or solve some problem. So having more policies is never a bad thing. We can have many policies for many categories or many sectors or many people. We can have policy for women, we can have different policies for males, like that. Like there can be many number of policies for different categories. So number is not
Then
here.
why should we not just produce policies every single day, every single hour to solve problems? Why
Tushar,
should it not?
I want to stop you here and I would request team successor to a question box to go ahead and ask the questions. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I had a follow-up to Tushar's question as well. If you're continuously drafting policies, where is the endpoint? And what is your basic parameter to draft a policy? When does a problem becomes a policy for you? I mean, there's a problem, but when do you go ahead and draft the policy? Because otherwise you're just drafting policies.
When the problem is universal, then we can propose a policy.
so in this
So the only
scenario,
go ahead.
what is that universal situation? I mean, What how can that be around? Like suppose if in a team a problem is arrived for multiple times, is that a universal? Can we say that
No.
that is applicable to all the teams?
Yes. If the problem is faced by all the teams, then it's a universal problem.
No, my
So
thread was
here
like
we are, sorry.
my thread was like if one team is having that problem multiple times, is that a universal problem?
No, that's not a universal problem.
Then how do you assess it?
If the same problem is being faced multiple times by different teams,
Then is it better to draft a policy for that or find a solution for that because everyone is facing?
Okay, I want to
policy
rephrase the
can
question. The question is that,
Hmm.
okay, whenever you are creating a policy, do you want that policy to be universal so that any person or anyone can use it in that situation? Or do you want to draft a policy for that particular situation? Is that your question, Aditya? So do you want to solve a situation by drafting a policy, or do you want to draft a policy to solve a global situation that would be applicable in any situation or in any organization, that can be implemented in any situation or any
Yes.
organization?
Yes, we want to draft a policy that can be implemented in any situation and in any company or in any organization.
Can I have a follow-up?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, Sanskrit, you just brought in that universality of your policy, right? Which initially was not present in your policy, right? You did not mention that it is applicable in all the organization. So that's good that your policy is developed now, right? But you said it's applicable to all the companies,
Organization.
yeah, all the organizations throughout the world. But then depending on the places, the geographical conditions, the culture and stuff, like organization culture itself, a lot of organizations differ, right? So how do you
Yeah.
make sure that when you're developing such a global policy, it stays intact? And again, the same question applies, right? But now the problem is a much larger one. How do you do that in not just one company but multiple companies?
Yes. Multiple companies also. I'm sure lots of employees are there who are multitasking, and because of that, their role requires multitask, right? So because of that, sometimes employees get burnt out. So our policy would help there.
But
Let me
I think
extrapolate the
I
idea
think
of
if
the constitution. So
hmm,
let's say in constitution also there are laws like a policies to the organization.
So guys, I would request your questions and answer to be a little bit short, and yeah, Aditya, you can go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm extrapolating the constitution to the policies, right? So when you don't follow the law, you are a maybe an illegal. It is illegal. So that way we can draft a policy that the strict rules can be followed. So I can see the similarities between the both.
so my follow up would that be same like Tushar's. If it is a universal policy, it can it can be changed based on their geographical area or their situation. Correct. So how do you make that same intact?
Aditya, it can be changed or it can be modified. Be more specific, please.
Acha, how do you make sure that it is throughout the same?
No, we are
Because it
not
is
saying
universal.
amendments can be done according to the situation, and but the core value of the policy will be same.
Okay, so guys, let's get done with this final thread, right? Whatever we are discussing, so that this point where we started gets closed, right? So to Magna Carta team. So earlier, what Omkar said was to make sure that one policy is staying intact, you introduce a lot of other policies, right? Now that was just for one specific company, right? Now you have said that your policy is being applied globally for all the companies, right? Now to keep it intact, would you introduce more global policies? Let's just have this final thread and then we'll close. Or even successors can answer since we are not doing any team stuff today. if you were in that situation that Team Magna Carta presented, what would you do?
So we discussed that example yesterday itself. There are multiple policies that is being drafted in the constitution, but there is a preamble that is being intact to follow as a fundamental and through which our other policies are being defined. And in that situation, if any other policies needs to define or it is important to define, we think or that we are intact with that one fundamental global policies. So in organization, we can relate this thing to the values and principle of the organization. Whatever new policies and whatever new things that we are drafting, it would not affect the values and principle of the organization that has been intact. So I think with this, we would like to thank Team Magna Carta for being in the answer box and successor for being in the question box. Even though successor team was not into that questioning mode. So thank you. But now let's start. So I would request team successor to share your pitch.
So I can go.
We can go ahead with pitch.
So for our scenario, we had a scenario in a company, in a team. If a person is lacking behind to complete his deliverables, what can be the other things we can implement so that person doesn't feel like he's being targeted or like that? So the first policy was like, we'll have a, sorry for that. Sorry guys. Artwa, you can start.
Sure. The first policy was that we'd have every week we'd have team discussions with the team leaders, and each individual who's facing a problem can raise a flag and the problem can be discussed extensively. We also wanted to introduce another policy where if a newcomer is facing this problem, what we do is we reduce their KPI or deliverables by some percentage to see if they're actually able to meet the deliverables now that the KPI has been reduced. Now, if it's a emotional challenge that they're facing or if it's a mental health issue that they're facing, we have smaller groups or communities of people where they can go and discuss their problems, like small workshops. And the second is we suggest these people to officially take some mental health breaks or relaxation breaks to help them get through that phase, whichever that they're facing. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, team successors. So I would request Team Magna Carta to go ahead with the questions.
I just want to know what principle have you, from the questionnaire? What principle from the constitution are you extrapolating here?
We have taken the generalized principle of why policies and regulations are introduced in the first place, and why would we want to use policies over rules to run an organization or even smaller teams in that case.
So, I think can you repeat your last statement? I think you said why the policies are preferred over rules, right?
On a larger extent, not always, but on a larger extent.
Why is that?
I can take that question. Look, if we have a larger extent of community, having rules would that rule won't be applicable or acceptable by most of them. Correct. But if it is a policy, then it is great.
So let me share my point of view. In my point of view, the rules are more specific and rigid. They can't be modified. But I believe the policies can be modified to as per our convenience based on the context. They can be applied to different contexts. So yeah.
Exactly. So they're amendable and also they adhere to one principle. So you cannot change the core, but you can change it if there is some individual in question, if there are some exceptionals. So I think that's why we would prefer policies over rules, because rules come with rigidity, which might be good, might be bad.
Yeah, okay. I have one question. So you mentioned that if a newcomer is facing problem, you mentioned that if a newcomer is facing problem, we can reduce their KPIs. Don't you think reducing KPIs can eventually affect the entire team?
So we would initially want to reduce some of their KPIs. So that's when a newcomer comes in, we initially don't give so much of responsibility to them, right? So we want to give them a little less responsibility and see that if they're able to deliver for 1 week. Now, on a long run, we wouldn't want to do this because that might hurt the team's overall objectives. We might want to run with it for a shorter time. Yes, Aditya
And
wanted to say something.
from Artua, I can take the point. If that is not a newcomer and still he's struggling to meet his KPIs.
Again, we are
That,
going into problem and solution
uh,
space. It's important that we interact with the first question that I'm having with team successor is you're telling you are going to have objectives and KPI intact so that in the policy as well. Am I correct? Okay. So now when newcomer will face, they have proper deliverables and proper milestone to cover. So that is your thing. So which from which principle of QFT you brought this point? That is what Aditya was also trying to ask.
We did answer the question, right? Was that not meant?
No, I was trying to understand how you can answer it again. Okay, yeah. Means the answer was not clear. Huh.
Sure.
So there was a, I think, point in the questionnaire
Where it was asked that where the importance of having policies and regulations and rules and objectives was stated, and also how the policies would have one core, where it was mentioned about preamble, how preamble is not changeable, but and everything else is changeable, which is why again we mentioned that we would prefer policies. I think that from that is where we got the essence of having a policy for such situations.
Okay, thank you, Artua, for clarifying my doubt. Again, I would ask Team Magna Carta to ask some questions if you have any question, because this will be the last question. We are running out of time.
So I have only one question. As per the scenario is concerned, do you think that particular employee is being violated with any of his fundamental rights?
What fundamental right are you exactly talking about? When you're saying this, you have some fundamental right in mind.
Any of the fundamental rights, like right to education, right to freedom, or something like that. Do you think any of the fundamental rights do you believe is violated in that particular scenario that you have mentioned?
I think the policy we designed was because to protect their fundamental rights, so we directly don't go ahead and jump to conclusion or take steps such as termination or anything as such if they're continuously not able to deliver, which is what happens in most of the scenarios, right? You go ahead and terminate someone. So we wanted to protect their rights. That's why we introduced the policies. Yeah, Aditya wanted to take some of this question, right? You can go ahead.
yeah. So it was like, as she said, we're trying to protect their rights, not to violate any rights. Like, as we are trying to protect their KPIs, like if they are not able to deliver their KPIs, you're not directly saying that you're not able to produce it, you go out. We're saying that we'll give you 1 week time, we'll reduce your KPIs, then you can prove yourself and then you can stay. If that is not the case, we have to take actions like that.
Uh, Aditya, how are you so sure
Then
that if
why don't
yeah, Omkar, go ahead.
so someone can misuse the policy, right? Someone can wantedly sit, don't do the work, and prove that in the 1 week period you give, someone can misuse your policy. Right? How would you tackle that?
Okay, in a
Policy.
journal aspect, if the question can be asked, it can be if a policy is being created, suppose your policy is being created, and someone is misusing that policy, like in case of constitution, that policy is being, it's not like that always men's are wrong. Sometimes women's are also wrong. If you talk about poor people is always used to thief things, or lots of things are being stolen by poor people. That because of that, the policy is being created. It might be possible that they misuse the policy. So in an organization, when you're drafting a policy, in your case as well, so if the policy would get misused, then what would be your approach?
I mean, in generalized form, with every policy comes some restricted rights, right? Every time the policy starts getting validated, we put some restriction on the policy or some restriction on something. So even in our case, I think we would want to put a restriction that after 1 week, whether to see if your KPI, before we go into seeing if your KPIs have improved or not, you'd face a review meeting. A review committee would be there, and you'd face a review, a scrutiny type of review where every part of your deliverables will be reviewed. So, guess. Yeah. If anyone from my team wants to add anything else, please go ahead.
Artua, are you saying that this point is also included in your policy? That review meeting
Might be an extended part of the policies.
Okay.
Yeah, let's say if I believe that my policies are being misused, first thing I will do is, reframe my policies after identifying the particular incident. Just that's how amendments come into picture, right, in our constitution. So yeah, then the second thing that we will do is maybe the strict action may be taken on the particular individual who have violated the policies or misuse of the policies.
Okay, is that I think that is it, right? Any other follow-up? Okay, I guess we don't have time now, guys. So we'll just end. Um, right. Right. Okay. So yeah, great. Thanks so much. We can just have quick, reflections from both the teams. Two reflections if you'd like to go ahead and share your experience of how the ST was. Did you gain some insights? You can do that. Please go ahead.
So we would like to have one reflection from Team Magna Carta and one reflection from Team Successor. Who wants to go in first?
I can go
Yeah.
first.
Yeah, Karen.
So my insights and my takeaway from this session was, as Aditya say, if policies are made, people misuse the policy. So for that, we have to rephrase the policy so no one can misuse it, and people who want it, they can enjoy the policies too. That's it.
Thank you, Shika. Yes. Who wants to go in next?
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful discussion regarding the constitution and how can it be extrapolated to the company perspective. So one thing I felt is I couldn't understand what the Tushar is trying to ask us. It's about the values, right? We while we are having the discussion, we knew that it is the values based on the values of the company we draft the policies. But I think we missed that part. So we couldn't grasp what we couldn't comprehend what he said. So yeah, that's one of the bottleneck that we have faced. So I think it's a wonderful discussion regarding the policies and how can this be useful for us as a for growing as a leader to understand the policies or how to knowing the frame how to frame the policies is one of the important attributes that a good leader can have. So yeah.
I want to add one point. Let's say policies are like constitution, and it's like core value of the organizations are like preamble. So whatever the constitution you are constructing, it's not possible without preamble. It's not possible without core value. So this is the thing I wanted to add, but at the time, Shagun was saying something. So
Thank you, Sanskriti. It was very nice and insightful thread. So thank you everyone for joining this ST, and hope so you enjoyed this discussion, or not discussion, a dialogue where we discussed about how a core value of organization can help us in building multiple policies and how policies can be built. So thank you for joining. We'll meet soon in next Socratic Dialogue.